Hello and welcome to another session of YPC webinars. I think what's really awesome today is that we get to celebrate Human Rights Month together, but most importantly, we'll be having a fun discussion around safety as well as our rights and responsibilities around that. Now, the reason why I said fun, I think in most cases when we think safety, we don't really think fun, right? It's always quite technical, quite serious and so on. But today I want us to explore it into depth, especially also around how having a safety mindset can enable our career journeys as young professionals. My name is Kondwani Panda, and again, welcome to another awesome episode of YPC webinars. Joining me today is Simone Naika, and she'll be my co-host today. Simone?
Hi, Kondwani.
Hey, Simone.
Hello. No, I'm happy to be here as well, and I think it's going to be brilliant. It's Human Rights Month, and obviously we have many rights, but as we've mentioned, rights come with responsibilities. And I think very often we're quick as people. I think it's a people thing. We're quick to say, I have the right to this, I deserve this. But I think we almost take a deep breath or pause before we say, I have the responsibility to. And I'm just so excited by the panel that we have here today with us. They're really professionals in their field, and they're just incredibly knowledgeable about safety. Excited about that. Should I introduce our first speaker?
Yes, you may go ahead.
All right, perfect. So our first speaker is Sizwe, who's the head of safety and sustainable development at the Minerals Council South Africa. Dr. Sizwe sorry, apologies. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Dr. Sizwe is the head of safety and sustainable development at the Minerals Council South Africa, employer convener on the board of the Mine Health and Safety Council of South Africa, and research associate at the University of Pretoria's Gordon Institute of Business Science. I hope one day I have such a bio when I come to speak at a webinar. He's the author of a book titled Production, Safety and Teamwork in a Deep Level Mining Workspace, which gives perspectives from the rock face. This is exciting. I'd love to hear more about this book as it's focused on production, safety, and teamwork in our space. He's also published a number of articles in academic journals, some of which have actually won international awards. He's been in business magazines, newspapers, and he's created research reports. So really, we welcome you and thank you for joining us today. Please do share your perspective on safety from a professional and industry professional's point of view.
Thank you, Simone, and thanks, Kondwani. It's lovely to be here on the platform. What a really, timely, webinar, especially the theme on rights, responsibilities, and safety. Very, very pertinent concepts in our space in mining industry, especially when you look at the challenges that we have still actually confronting as far as health and safety is concerned. I can tell you that despite the progress that we have made over the years since the advent of democracy, I must say, there has been tremendous progress in really ensuring that every mine worker returns home unharmed from work every day. But the last 2 years have been particularly challenging for the industry. We regressed in 2020 with 60 fatalities. In 2021, we have provisional number of 74 fatalities. One fatality is one too many. It's a crisis, it's a catastrophe. Nobody deserves to come to work to die. And we do recognize the devastating impact of fatalities and injuries on the loved ones of our colleagues, their friends and their communities. So I have prepared a few slides here that I'll be using just to steer the discussion. Just let me know if you can see the PowerPoint from your side, and I'll try put it on the presentation mode.
Perfect, perfect. While you do that, yes, it's visible from our side. I'd just like to say to everyone online, as the presentation goes on, please pop in your questions and we will address them after the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. To start with, yeah, those are key questions that I seek to address in the coming slides. And of course, they relate to what this webinar is all about today. What does right to safety mean to leaders? What is the responsibility of leaders to safety? And I would like to just bring the message home. You know, how in the industry are we going about really exercising this right to safety from the perspective of leadership and responsibility to safety, drawing from the work that I've been doing at the Minerals Council. You mentioned the Mine Health and Safety Council. I'm sure Brian Ncube will even expand on some of the things that we as leaders are doing. When I'm talking leaders, we're talking stakeholders from government, organized business, and trade unions, organized labor. So it's a leadership perspective as per the title. What I'm sharing with you is a leadership perspective on this topic of rights, responsibility, and safety. It's important to just paint the context, you know, the issues of rights. And as I said, Kondani mentioned this being the Human Rights Month. On Monday, we were commemorating the day where we really respect, you know, the people that lost their lives through the injustices of the past. And of course, in the mining workplace, you know, the injustices of the past did find their way in terms of how they affected the health and safety of mine employees, where really the lives of employees were considered cheap. The statistics, if you look in the early 1900s, they will tell you it was a particularly different era to the one that we witnessed post-apartheid since 1994. And this is really the issue of rights to safety is enshrined in our constitution. Even the Mine Health and Safety Act, our legislation, which is a product of the Lyon Commission that was ordered by the first democratically elected president, the late Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, a collective outcome of government, organized business, and organized labor, which is really promoting the spirit of tripartism. And for the first time with this legislation, workers were granted rights to a healthy and safe mining environment, and they've been also granted power, voice, and representation, you know, through health and safety representatives. And of course, the legislation itself does outline the responsibilities of employers, and this is where leaders, as they lead organizations, come in. So I think that context is very important as to where we come from, and looking at the transition that we had in 1994 and all that we have seen since then. Particularly Chapter 2 of our Mine Health and Safety legislation, it does outline what the responsibilities of employers, mining companies led by CEOs, shareholders, you know, that they need to create a mining environment where employees can perform work, you know, without endangering their health and safety or any safety and health of any other person. And of course, the voice and representation through health and safety reps, the right to withdraw and refuse dangerous work, Section 23, you know, and then of course, workers as well have a duty to ensure their health and safety. So the issue of rights, it's an important one, but it goes with responsibilities. What does right to safety mean for leaders? You know, drawing from my experience and what I've seen in the industry, the lives of employees or any human being are sacrosanct. You know, nobody deserves to come to work to die, as I said. No CEOs that wake up in the morning, or a worker for that matter that wakes up in the morning going to a mining workplace planning to die. You know, so as leaders, we need to safeguard employee rights to safety by creating that healthy and safe workplace, inculcating a positive culture that enables workers to exercise their right to withdraw from unsafe working places, raise any hazards without fear and intimidation. In the past, with studies that have conducted, the way workers were supervised, they were supervised along the lines that were militaristic, authoritarian, autocratic, they were voiceless. So we've seen that with the advent of democracy and the democratization of the workplace, workers having given rights to withdraw and also exercise that right and powers. So those are the points that one is emphasizing, that leadership at this is key to really creating a health and safety work culture. Responsibilities as leaders, it starts at the top. Safety starts at the top. Leaders lead safety. We always say in our industry, the work that I'm doing at the Minerals Council to our CO Zero Harm Leadership Forum, that the kind of results that leaders get or CEOs is a reflection of their leadership. So so they need not just, it doesn't end in boardrooms where you just talk, but you need to walk the health and safety talk, not this kind of armchair sitting in the boardrooms. Leaders need to go out and show commitment to safety, talk to workers, avail themselves through visible and felt leadership by being visible and felt by their colleagues at various levels in the organizational ladder. So we also talk about heartfelt, the caring part, the heartfelt leadership. That's another emphasis that we put there. Being accessible, and remember, the leadership behavior or style, manners, traits, personalities do impact on how employees or followers, respond to you as a leader, and that could either be positive or negative. So it's very important to lead by example as leaders. So any safety management system, it needs, if it's to be successful, it has to be initiated, led, and supported by all levels of leadership. And this issue of leaders as well, let's also recognize that there are different leaders, across the organization or society. You yourselves, you are leaders in your own spheres of influence, responsibilities. Even at lower levels, frontline levels, you will have leaders, amongst the workers in our space. I mean, we have frontline mining teams. You'll find there are team leaders there. You will have supervisors, mine overseers, shift bosses, and you will have your production managers, mine captains, all the way up to mine managers, CEOs, etc. So we also need to recognize that within employees themselves as well, they also are leaders. Listening to employees' views is particularly important as one of the responsibilities of leaders to safety. I mean, I've seen in my own research that workers, you may come up with any particular initiative, program that you want to initiate in a workplace, maybe be the productivity and safety enhancing initiative, but workers will tell you, how does that really work in practice? Whether we are piloting it, exploring it based on their experience, or what I call tacit knowledge or experiential knowledge. And some of you may be students at universities, but when you go and do your practicals, surely there is something that you can learn from frontline mining teams as well that you never thought of, that you never found in the textbook, and those bottom-up perspectives do shape knowledge, do shape how we go about developing technologies. So that's the point I'm emphasizing. We invest in safety. Leaders invest in safety. They don't see safety as a cost. We've seen that companies that are doing well, that are having long periods of being fatality-free, are profitable. They are no Section 54s. They even impose their own Section 54s, onto themselves. And they are the safest, They are the most efficient, they are the most productive. We have seen that. And they empower employees to own safety, to exercise their right to withdraw from an unsafe workplace. They empower them, provide training, expose them to the latest technologies and knowledge around safety. They create and review and sustain a positive safety culture. You know, leaders, they come and go, they move from one organization to another. You know, we've seen that sometimes one leader, you find that has been particularly great in a particular company, moves to another company. And sometimes you find that all good work goes down the drain, you know. So they need to sustain this. You know, safety is such a dynamic, you know, such a dynamic thing to deal with. So, and safety culture as well. We've got to be constantly reviewing and seeing, and the external environment does impact on how employees go about getting focused on safety. We've seen with COVID-19 in our space, the pandemic itself, we can't rule it out, its impact on safety, how it affected the quality of frontline supervision in terms of leadership presence, you know, where leaders have had to work online. You know, we had these visible felt leadership programs before, but they were not conducted the way we did pre-COVID-19 times. You know, the rate of absenteeism, you know, the rate of absenteeism as well, the impact of that, you know, so it's very important. And online working, indeed, one thing that we've also observed, it has really affected the culture of organizations. You know, if it's one thing that online working has done, you know, it has also affected the culture. So they facilitate that desired health and safety comes, and they are accountable, and they create a conducive environment for employee safety. I would like to just extend this discussion on responsibilities of leaders to safety to authority and accountability, because safety responsibility goes hand in hand with levels of authority and accountability in all of us. I mean, as you get to the labor market where you will be working, be it at home as well, you know, there is some level of responsibility that all of us have, you know. But just to be precise about what do we mean by safety responsibility, is the obligation to carry forward an assignment successfully, and you conclude it without any accidental loss occurring, you know, and it goes, as I was saying, with authority to direct, you know, the necessary action to ensure success. And the other point is that it also involves obligation, you know, care and safekeeping of property of others, or supervision of individual or individuals. So it's one thing having a responsibility to safety, but again, the levels of authority and accountability are different. There's a CEO, sees as being a CEO. I've got to, I mean, they said the buck stops with me, you know, so my level of authority it's different from the level of authority that my colleague at the front or lines has, or at the coalface, or the frontline supervisor. That's what we are saying, and the levels of accountability. As the CEO, my level of accountability is different from that of an employee at frontline levels. That's what we are trying to say here. However, it doesn't take the fact that all of us are accountable for safety. You know, any person within an organization is responsible for safety within the area of, you know, accountability and authority. The definition that McKinnon is providing on safety accountability is that when management is under the obligation to ensure that safety responsibility is, you know, just wanna minimize this, yeah. Ensure that safety responsibilities are used to achieve safety and legal standards. And that's what the emphasis is all about, being liable to be called on to render an account should something happen, whether it's your decision. We have a program at the Minerals Council, what we call the Just Culture Accountability Framework Leading Practice, Usually when accidents happen, with some studies that one has reviewed, and it happens in our industry as well, this blame the worker syndrome. It's easy to just blame the worker, and just run to that. But the circumstances around the incident itself and what compelled the worker to take a particular decision, you may find that maybe it was Sizwe, the CEO, that did not execute a particular task. Maybe there was an email that I didn't respond to timeously. It may be that frontline supervisor that did not approve the requisition to purchase a particular material, and the frontline mining teams are now running short of material. And what do? They now engage in unofficial work practices, or they take shortcuts, or in the Fanagalo lingua franca, markup planisa, because now they have these targets to meet, and yet they have these production bonuses that they want to qualify for. By all means, we know that the mining environment, it's nice that it's modernizing, we are innovating, but it's been a hostile environment where you don't just stay there just for the fun of it. You need to be preoccupied. So it's all to say that, accountability and responsibility to safety, other than just running or just resorting to easily blaming the worker. But what is it that as a leader you did, to prevent that particular incident? We all have responsibilities, and it has to be just, other than just apportioning blame willy-nilly. As just doing that, it also prevents us from learning. And there are different levels of accountability, as I mentioned. A senior executive may delegate some of their authority, level of responsibility, and accountability to lower, but the ultimate accountability lies with them, So as leaders, in the end, one cannot be held responsible and consequently accountable for something over which one does not have authority. That's a very important point. That's why I was extending the discussion on responsibility of leaders to say with authority and accountability. An example as well is where a safety department cannot be held accountable for the safety of employees over whom they do not have authority. And of course, this thing also go into our, terms of employment or conditions of employment, contractual obligations, being clear with roles and responsibilities. And this is where as leaders, we've got to define those. Communication is also key, when agreeing which organization, department, or individual is responsible for each area of safety. Now, how then do we bring this discussion back to how the industry is going about protecting the right of employees to safety and safety responsibilities? What does it mean for the South African mining industry leadership? Drawing from the Minerals Council, we have what we call the CEO Zero Harm Forum, or CEO Zero Harm Leadership Forum, emphasizing the point that safety starts with the CEOs, and as I mentioned, like many of the successes, whether you are instituting a particular safety change program, safety culture program, it has to be backed up and supported by the CEOs, commitment of the CEOs, leadership of leaders, collaboration. In safety, we do not compete. And we have seen in our space, when there's collaboration right from the top to the shaft level, at mine levels, even at regional tripartite levels, it's key among stakeholders, government, organized business, organized labor. We are even extending this to other stakeholders, suppliers, OEMs, universities, research institutions, not only locally as well, but also globally, because we seek to learn from the pockets of excellence, as well as learning from incidents so that we don't repeat. So achieving the goal of zero harm, back to my point, nobody deserves to come to work. It's their right to come to work, to a workplace that is safe and healthy, so that they come back as they join the industry they will retire in the same state of health and safety as they were when they leave their home, coming to work, going back home unharmed. So, and that is part of our tripartite safety milestones, and of course, our Kumbule Cast strategy at the Minerals Council. Kumbule Cast is a Nguni word meaning home, connecting the workplace and home. Leading by example, you know, visible felt leadership, demonstrating progress on transformation, safety, social and environmental imperatives. This is part of our strategic goal at the Minerals, and of course, including sharing leading practices, successes. We have what we call CO-ships at the Minerals Council, where we also have health and safety days led by CEOs, executives. So safety is not something that you know, you can just keep in the boardroom. You've got to live it. It's a value that one has to live. And transforming that culture of health and safety, we've got a culture transformation framework initiative in the industry. And let me tell you, it consists of 11 pillars, and at the top of those 11 pillars is the leadership pillar. You know, just again, emphasizing the points of the significance of leadership when it comes to safety and protecting the rights of employees to safety and their responsibilities. And if you really look now at what's happening globally, safety is one of the imperatives of our environmental, social, and governance issues, or what we call ESGs. Investors now, they really look at the safety performance of companies. It's not something that is taken for granted. If again, you can even extend that to sustainable development goals, which is the UN way of making sure that we live in a world that protects the ills, so that the future generations as well, they don't having to be affected by the negative impacts of mining. So safety is really one of the imperatives of those ESG issues and sustainable development, because there's no way that we can consider mining sustainable as long as we are failing our colleagues from really returning from work unharmed every day at the end of each and every shift. So I'll end here, and I'm sure, I hope this talk triggered some comments, interest, and issues of clarifications. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hi, Cesar. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and for sharing with us. The thing I loved about your presentation was how much you spoke to leadership and its role in safety. So in the safety environment, so I'm a metallurgical engineer by discipline, but not being a safety representative or being allocated or having studied safety, you, in whatever discipline or whatever role that you take on, safety is still part of you because you are part of mining. And I think the emphasis that you put on safety was brilliant, and that it is from a leadership perspective that we need to influence one another. The questions we will compile, and we'll do a question and answering session right at the end. So if you have questions for Cesar, please put them into our Q&A and we'll address them at the end. Thank you for your presentation, Cesar.
Thank you, Simone.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brian, and Brian is currently the Acting Chief Research Operations Officer, and as the head of the research units at the Mine Health and Safety Council, he's responsible for overseeing the health and safety research program with the aim of improving operational health and safety conditions in the South African mining industry. In 2016, he joined Africa's International Advisors Association, which is a management consulting firm in South Africa. As a consultant, he's assisted various institutional clients with strategic planning, organizational design, business process re-engineering, market studies, competitor analysis, portfolio analysis, and scenario planning. We see that he has a wealth of knowledge And we're so privileged to have you with us today, Brian.
Thank you so much, Simone, and good afternoon to the fellow panelists and also the audience. I just want to check that you can see my video.
Yes, we can see your video.
Yeah. No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I think first and foremost, I would just like to thank, SAIMM YPC for this initiative, putting it together and giving us an opportunity, to also share our thoughts on this very important topic, dealing with leadership and safety. So I think well done to the team that put this together, and looking forward to engaging with you guys, more in the future. So thanks for the invitation. Initially, I didn't have a presentation, Simone, but while preparing, and I did put together a few slides, just to structure my my discussion. I'll just take a second to share quickly.
No, not a problem at all, Brian. I think with this incredible description of all that you've done and achieved, you can even put the slides away.
Is it? Yeah, actually, I thought of that. Yeah.
And I'm sure you will still have a lot to share with us. So the slides are not a mandatory. If you feel comfortable to just chat about safety with us, please do what's comfortable for you.
Okay, all right. No, that's fine. Do you have a time limit, Simone?
Yes, about 15 minutes.
Is it about 15 minutes? Okay. No, I'll try to stop myself from going on and on. Yeah, so you can see my slides, huh?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the for the lovely intro. As I've been introduced, Brian Mube, Acting Research Operations Officer at the NHSC. But my substantive role there is actually a program manager for mining regulations. I was very excited to get this opportunity as as old as I may look, I still feel very young, So it's very good to actually have these discussions with other, relatively young people. I started out actually with a bursary, from Sasol, where I got the opportunity to then work, as part of the graduate program after that, And I mean, if you just fast forward, it's probably it's about 10 years, where I am now. When I started as a graduate, in 2012, I wouldn't have thought, in such a short period of time, I would, have an opportunity of, sharing a panel with people like Dr. Pagati, and other panelists in this panel today. And what I want to share with that is, the spirit of volunteering, If I can just, summarize how you can learn so much more as fast as possible, it is to volunteer and raise your hand as often as possible. That's the only way you learn, It's very easy to say, I'm appointed for this task, this is my job, this is what I'll do. And you don't open yourself up, to assisting and sharing and collaborating with other people, Like as a personal note, to the younger people in the audience is to volunteer and assist and share and collaborate as much as possible to assist you, in your growth and learning in your career, whether it's in mining, whether it's in safety or finance or, any other field, So I think that's one learning point I wanted to share as a relatively young person. So if I just move on to my slide, I'll share just a few pointers on the journey of MHSC, the entity that I work for, our structure, what it's made up of, and the industry-wide summit milestones that we've agreed to, and then I will conclude. Like I always say when I talk, to have a clear path and direction on the way forward, it's always good to reflect and think back of where you come from, right? That assists you greatly in charting a way forward and direction and your strategy and your next steps, etc. So from an MHSE and mining industry perspective, you know, we come back from a time, if you look at the 20th, you know, century, on average, we were losing about 1,000 people a year in the mines, you know, due to safety incidents. You know, so this preliminary research, you know, led to the convening of the Leon Commission. Dr. Sizwe Phakathi mentioned that, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that, which at the time had the most resources in terms of, you know, financial, human resources, engineers, you know, doctors, lawyers that were part of that commission's investigative work in understanding what is causing, you know, all of these fatalities and deaths in the mining sector. You know, so this was the commission. I know now the Zondo Commission is what we know and are familiar of, you know. So at the time, you know, this was the commission that was of interest to professionals, you know, in the mining sector like us. So as outcomes of this commission is what led to the Mine Health and Safety Act of '96, as we know now. So that was one of the key recommendations, you know, of that act. And the idea was also, you know, to sort of streamline health and safety concerns. You know, before this was the Mines and Works Act, you know, which was focusing more on safety, and then health was more, you know, the Department of Health. So it wasn't, you know, like coordinated as health and safety as we know it now. You know, so the commission and the various commissioners felt it's actually a good idea to focus on health and safety as a sort of discipline and function holistically. And then the Mine Health and Safety Act then was established, you know, to oversee and conduct research that will keep understanding and looking at root causes of what leads to, you know, injuries, fatalities, diseases in the sector. And then it started as SIMRAC, as a, you know, Safety in Mines Research Advisory Committee, where CORE was doing research. We may be aware, you know, falls of ground incidents, you know, are still a majority contributor. So research was being done there. You know, issues of dust and noise, you know, and TB, etc., were also a major concern, even back then as they are now. So research was conducted on all those areas, and then those outcomes were then shared, you know, with the department, with the minister, you know, responsible for regulations, and most importantly, with mining companies themselves, you know, those research outcomes to assist them in their operations. And then what was also as a key function as MHSE, we need to convene a summit every 2 years. Some of us might be familiar. We last held a very successful one in 2018 with about, you know, over 700 people, you know, where our mining principals, our leaders, including the minister and the leaders of organized labor, discuss and review the states of health and safety in the mining sector. You know, so there's we actually might be having one this year again, later this year, but once that has been confirmed, Simone and Kondwana will be the first, you know, to receive that invitation. We will make sure we do that. Yeah, so I think that's just our brief, you know, history where we come from. As I said, we were looking at about 1,000 fatalities, you know, in the 90s, and in 2019 we actually recorded only 51 fatalities, you know. So that just shows you, you know, the trend and improvement in OHS performance that we've achieved over, you know, the past, say, 30 years. But again, I must emphasize, you know, zero harm, that's our goal. So even the 51, as much as it's a great improvement, we want to be at zero. That's where we want to be, you know. I think Dr. Phakathi did mention that's our goal, is zero harm. Yeah, so for us to achieve this zero harm, we have a number of initiatives, you know, that we embark on. to allow us to advise, the department and the minister on the laws. As I said, we do this by conducting research. But what's very, very important as part of our functions is to liaise with other bodies, so this will include your state, organs, departments of health, Mining Qualifications Authority, which was also established under the Mine Health and Safety Act, professional bodies, SAIMM, other professional bodies, or EXA, Mine Ventilation Society, all sorts of professional bodies, that assist us in the goal that we want to achieve. I think we've been very honest in the past few months that, no one entity, no one company, no one individual can achieve, the goal that we want to achieve. So collaboration, I'll keep saying, partnering, communicating with other entities is probably our best bet, in us achieving this goal of zero harm. Lastly on my slide, promoting a culture of health and safety is of paramount importance. This event actually is part of promoting a culture, of health and safety. So well done to the team for putting that together. So as MHSC, as I said, we also, have various events throughout the year that we share, with the sole purpose of promoting a culture of health and safety. So it mustn't be regulations, someone coming after us with a stick for us to do the right thing. It must be inherent, in every individual, and that safety is my responsibility. I think even COVID has shown us as well that it's up to you. You get a vaccine, you observe the COVID protocols. It shouldn't be, the government or the state, all the time that is telling us, what to do. We do need that, we do need regulations, but the culture needs to be a personal thing. We need to own it, as an individual, as a young person, as an old person, etc. It needs to be in all of us. So I'm almost at the end. The slide I'm showing now was a summit and milestones that were agreed to by the principles that I mentioned, in the summit in 2014, where you can see right at the top, we need to eliminate fatalities and injuries. So there are some targets we have there that we will be reflecting on this year. We also want to eliminate occupational diseases, as I said, dust, noise, other forms of diseases. We also looking at issues of TB, HIV, and AIDS as well in the mining sector, how that can be improved. And then I think what's very relevant to the discussion today, we also have a culture transformation framework. I think Dr. Parati touched on this as well. So this is a very important program, that stemmed out of research that was done way back in 2011 already, but still very relevant now, where there are, various pillars that need to assist us. And you'll see that at the very top, 100% implementation of leadership, so leadership is one of the most important pillars. All the others are important, but we all know that leadership, plays a significant and huge role in assisting, the rest of the structures in achieving this goal of zero harm and being safe, from injuries, diseases, etc. Dr. Parati did also mention, visible felt leadership. I like what Sizwe said. Gone are the days where leaders, sit in big offices somewhere, and only go underground maybe once a year, etc. So your workforce needs to see that you are actually in solidarity, with them as a leader. I need to be visible, I need to be seen, I need to lead from the front. Even if it means it's weekly visits, just to see that we are all in this together, and not just workers being exposed, to all the risks that come with our mining activities. This slide, again, an emphasis on collaboration. This just shows you, as the MHSC, what we do, that the middle triangle there, we conduct research, we review and develop regulations and standards, and we also promote a health and safety culture, and we follow a risk-based approach where we need to identify mining operations with the highest risk, where the most incidents are taking place, the most injuries, the most fatalities, and then our research then is determined, using those high risk and hazardous situation. Not only are we helping employees, but we also need to assist our mining communities as well. Activities like blasting, we did research, that showed us that sometimes, most often, open cast blasting does lead to, cracked houses, excessive noise, but we are doing work in trying to rectify that and come up with solutions, either changing our blasting methods or blasting material that will reduce the impact on our communities as much as possible. So we partner with states, organized labor, Minerals Council, CISO representing that entity today, and then all of our decisions are made in tripartism, as a collection with all of these stakeholders, so that there's better buy-in and take up in the initiatives that we come up with, So this is my last slide, with everything that I've done in trying to answer, I like how this question is crafted, what does the right to safety mean to leaders? I think I've touched on that. But again, it's a dual approach. With rights comes responsibilities and duties, right? So we move away from this entitlement, that I have a right to safety. It doesn't end there. It's good, the Constitution, all of the laws that we have are good. The Mine Health and Safety Act, I think it's section 23, a worker has a right to refuse even working in dangerous places. But, with that right, which is good and empowers everyone, but there's a duty, there's a responsibility to make sure that I work in a manner that is safe for myself and is safe for the workers around me as well, So I think as a key takeaway from me and for the audience, if there's one thing to take away is that it's not a right only. I need to continuously reflect, what is my responsibility, with this rights? What do I have to do, I need to make sure I do the right training, I'm trained, which is, responsibility of your leaders and managers as well. But you yourself as well need to make sure that you have the right training, the right exposure, before you even involve yourself in some of the high risk activities. So the bullets that are here, I'm not going to talk to all of them, but as I said, this is our culture transformation, framework pillars, and all of these pillars are meant to assist us, transform, our culture towards health and safety. It's not about my boss, giving me rules or the government, giving me regulations, etc. But my culture, my approach to safety needs to change, So rules and regulations must be nice to have, but I should be able, to ensure that I make, safety my individual responsibility and duty as well. I've mentioned leadership diversity, very important. With in South Africa, 11 languages, diversity in terms of gender, women, men, and then the other, gender types. All of that, actually, as a leader, you need to accept, diversity in what we are doing, especially being in South Africa. So it becomes important, technology, fourth industrial revolution, what ways, how can we leverage on these technology advancements, to assist us in actually performing better in terms of health and safety. We often benchmark with other countries like Australia, your Canadas, your United States, and then these other more maybe first world countries, and what makes their performance relatively better is because they've probably removed people, using technology. So, I mean, in informal discussions, the fastest way we can get to zero harm is just to remove everyone and maybe replace with machines. But obviously, I know it's easy to just say, but strategically, that's where we're moving towards. But obviously, this will go with upskilling and training of the workforce. So that if I remove Gondwani from operating a continuous miner underground, and I place him on surface in a nice safe office, and he can just operate the continuous miner by remote. So I need to make sure that he's also trained and adequately skilled, to be able to perform another job, outside of the risky area. So that's just an example of how technology and how leaders need to embrace and accept, technology in making us safe. Data, we are a data-driven world. All our decisions need to be driven by data, bonuses and performance. I'm not sure if Dr. Pati covered this, but it's very important as leaders that in incentivizing, our workforce, are we not then leading to shortcuts being taken? Because I want a bonus, I'm now not going to report my injury, etc., etc. So I think we must just be careful of the unintended consequences, of some of the incentives, which are good for morale, obviously, and employees being committed to work. But let's just be careful of those unintended consequences. Integrated mining activities, we are driven by production. Mining entities are businesses that need to make money, but the two can coexist. We focus on health and safety, and we also focus on production. So that is the direction we need to head towards. Like metrics only related to production are good, but let's also put in some measurements on safety and health as well, which I'm sure a lot of companies are doing. Tripartism, as I said, not only states, organized labor and employers, but professional bodies as well, other government departments, other interested, stakeholders. Collaboration is key. Regulations will always be important, and also, sharing of leading practices as well. That's probably the best way to, prevent, reoccurrences of safety incidents. If as one mine, I can share my learnings from previous incidents, chances are there won't be a repeat in your own operation or the other operation you shared with as well. I'll stop there, Simone and Kondani, that was the last slide. And, we continue striving for zero harm and ensuring that every mine worker, returns home unharmed every day. And so I'd like to end there. Thank you so much. Thanks.
No, thank you, Brian. I resonated with so many different things that you said. So I took a range of notes, but I see we're doing our question and answer toward the end. But something I just cannot wait until the end to comment on is your culture transformation pillars. I think they are very descriptive and really encompass several various different aspects that will channel you towards that cultural change. So, you don't change a culture by putting up a signboard on the mine, and you don't change the culture by, giving out, I can't tell you how many water bottles I have, and it's, we try all of these techniques, but it is definitely the collaboration and the incorporating various different techniques to achieve a single central cultural transformation. And I do think those pillars are wonderful. Thank you for sharing them.
Okay. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you.
We'll do our question and answer at the end. So thank you, Brian.
Okay.
I'll be introducing our next speaker. Our next speaker is Lindy Scott, who is the founder and creative director of the Health and Safety Dialogue Company. So Lindy's expertise and experience includes creative and business strategy, concept development, team building, occupational health and safety, and Lindy's love of creativity led her to pursue a degree in fine art at the University of Witwatersrand, but her passion for business never wavered, and Lindy poured her creativity into an innovative new business strategy for health and safety. Lindy was recently awarded the 2021 AfriSafe Shining Star Award and was invited to join Africa's Brightest Young Minds 2021 cohort. Lindy is passionate about the arts, women empowerment, and STEM education. Lindy, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Simone, and thank you very much, Brian and Sizwe, for the very insightful presentation and for also painting such a great context for me to just jump right in and actually talk about safety, culture, and culture practically and off the bat. So yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction, Simone. I assume everybody can see my slides. Okay, so today I'm going to just share a little bit about my approach to health and safety and my team's approach, and really how we ended up from art school into sitting on the forum today with the Young Professionals Council. So just want to move over my slides. They're not. Okay, so we have, I've got a little tagline going in my life called From Art School to Amber. And a lot of people look at me and go, how did you end up in mining? Lindy, you studied fine art, you used to be in events, but now you have joined Women in Mining, you're obsessed with mining. How did this happen? And Tabile, the previous chairperson of Women in Mining South Africa, always used to say, you don't choose mining, mining chooses you. And I am a prime example of how that happened. So in 2010, I studied fine arts at the University of Wits, which Simone mentioned. And then I began my career with, okay, what do I do with this creative degree? And how on earth do I take the next steps? But as a creative, I was never really interested in the final product. I was a very strange art student. I was always way more interested in my colleagues' rationale, the collaboration, what they were doing in their studio. So I realized quite early on in my degree that creativity for me was about collaboration. It was that process of creating an artwork. It was that process of finding the idea, of articulating something that you wanted to convey a message. So my strength and foundation of my career in safety starts from a visual foundation. So this is a picture of me sitting on my desk in art school to me, my first time underground, which was in 2017. And it was just from being on the ground that I learned so much and really have found myself here today. So this is just a little bit of images from the work we've done. I know Simone, I've met her actually through Women in Mining. So you'll see some of the graphics that my team has created. Everything we've done has taken all of that legislation that we've heard about, all of these strategies, and given safety professionals, leaders, and miners really the tools to bring health and safety to life. Well, you might have been sitting there thinking, okay, I've learned all of this. One day when I'm a leader, or one day when I'm in the front lines, or as I'm sitting at my desk, how can I bring safety to my organization? How can I start to transform? And that's been something my career has really focused on. How do we co-create? So you'll see on the side, there's a whole lot of paper-based things, and that's from workshopping. That's from co-creating with the experts in the room. I'm not the expert. I don't have the chemical engineering degree. I've never blasted anything in my life. I have no idea how to do that. So when we're in the room and when we get called by leaders, the first call I ever got was from someone at Anglo American who phoned me and said, hi, I've heard you can draw. We need your help, please. And that was the first introduction, just from how do those creative skills, how can we look for ways to bring safety to life, make it simple, make it engaging. If we look at fashion or Netflix or Instagram, there's such cool visuals out there, yet somehow health and safety has this reputation of really dull, really boring, little stick men, and I emphasize men because there's very little female content available, which is something that we've really looked to bring the female miner into the workspace as well as the men. So this is just a few pictures. There's different things, and we're very proud of the work that we do on the ground. But this type of work for us had quite a long process. We would have to get a leader involved who would have to sign off. There'd be quite a big budget involved to get me and my team onto site. There'd be a big learning experience. So we often found leaders were looking for creative ways to really bring safety to life, but production got in the way. This got in the way. Then there was strikes got in the way, long distances, petrol prices. There were always these reasons for why the creative safety kind of got on hold. So I want to introduce you to a model from design thinking. So this is one of the best tools you can learn from a practical thing, is when you actually start to empathize. So this model is about coming up with new ideas, and I give this credit to most of the ideas we use and actually for landing the business Amber, which I'll tell you a little bit about later. But when I was on the ground as a complete newbie, let's remember, I did study fine art. Mining was not at all covered in my curriculum. But when I was on the ground looking at what the leadership pains, the health and safety professionals pains, the workers, how did we actually learn, empathize, and then actually define the problem? So I realized, and the definition we've given is, health and safety content is slow to produce. It can be very expensive. It happens in remote areas. So these were the definitions of the problem we found. And a few of the mine managers said, oh, creativity, it's so scary. That's way above my pay grade. Or I'm a practical thinker. I don't do creativity. That's what you're here for. So there was always this fear of creativity, which was what we were hearing time and time again. So how could we solve this? So my team and I came up with an idea. We'd had all this practical on the ground research, which happened with a few clients over a few months. But how did we actually break this whole hierarchy of creativity down and actually make it affordable, quick to access, and African-centric? So we created a platform, which we launched a prototype. So prototyping is when you do a quick version, test your assumption. So we came up with the idea, we tested it, we put a whole bunch of COVID-19 content out. The response was really positive. And then we constantly tested and built our proper beta software. But this type of methodology shows how when you start to empathize and actually look at the real problems, and health and safety is a real problem. It's the difference between life and death on a mine. So when we start to empathize and look at the concerns, how do we really solve? So this model is an incredible one. You can do a little bit of further research on it. But this was how we came up with the idea for Amber and how we approach all our health and safety challenges. So we were inspired by real mines to create a solution that was a practical tool for the safety professionals. If you think of your day job, and I can use Simone, for example. She mentioned safety is not really my responsibility. I don't have the job title of safety, but you want to do safety and you want to be a safety leader. Then we have the safety professionals who it is their day job, but they have a to-do list of 1 million things to do a day. So how creativity is probably at the bottom of that list, I'm going to assume. I doubt it's number one, doubt it's number two. So we were inspired to really make it an easy and accessible way. So we've spent hours looking at the Health and Safety Act. Sizwe and I actually met in 2018. We realized on our demo yesterday, when we were still in our empathy phase, like, how can we solve this? Fast forward a few years later, and we do have Amber. But this has happened, and our approach to creativity has happened from really listening to where can we help. That has been our whole ethos of how do we help the safety leaders, how do we help the professionals, the workers, and the communities. So our mission is to save lives through creativity in the workplace and beyond. So that's really what's driven us, but that's been inspired by the real minds. There is no ways this business or my career in safety would never have happened if it weren't for the leaders who were part of the Minerals Council, who were following the strategy, looking for ways to introduce felt leadership, build transformation, create ways that their teams could make stuff themselves. So I really sit here today saying thank you to the Minerals Council for inspiring the leaders who you do have to actually call out service providers who in turn have actually taken health and safety to heart and made it our entire mission to help everybody to keep health and safety, something that's fun, something that's engaging. It's got a bad reputation, it has, but how can we change that? We're all humans, everybody wants to live. We all want to see our children graduate, go to our granny's 90th birthday. We're all setting goals for ourselves. We want to graduate, we want to get the promotion, we want to be invited to speak on a panel. All of those things are dreams people have, and the difference between a good day and a bad day is really health and safety. So for me, when they ask what makes a good leader, it's not somebody who just says, oh, Lindy, you and your team make our place creative. Just do something. That's not the type of work we're saying. Just putting a cool picture or giving another water bottle like Simone mentioned, that's not going to change the culture. And that's also not going to make you a safety leader. For me, I think a leader is somebody who values safety. You're not a safety leader. You're not a kind leader, you're not an aggressive leader, you're a leader. And if you value safety, that's the important, that's what makes you a good leader. So for me, I always say that you can always learn these things, but you have to actually care and put people at the heart of what you do. And safety is part of business, it's part of production. Nobody wakes up, goes to the mine and says, today I'm here to be safe. No, today you're here to work safely. And that's what our whole thing is. How do we inspire those conversations and make sure that safety is not this boogeyman or this bad thing or somebody trying to take away your bonus, but it's actually the way to help you retire with grace, which is what Sizwe said. We want everybody to leave the industry as well. And that's the thing for you to age and retire with grace. So how does this practically work? And why did we break it down? And why am I sharing this with you today? Because health and safety and leadership, and it can be quite pie in the sky, quite difficult. Like, what do I do today? How do I hang up off this Zoom call and do something? So we really broke it down after years of research, and this is the methodology that we've come up with. So we work based on topics. So fall of ground, for example, which Brian mentioned, is a huge topic. So then we'd set the campaign, we create posters and resources that are auto-branded, they are very creative. So this was all, and I'm not doing this as a sales pitch, I'm doing this as understanding why we've done this and why the years on the ground have built that. People want to be represented. You want to look at an image and feel, that's me. That's not some picture that's come from Canada or Australia where they've got cooler graphics than we have here. So we really took to make it very African-centric, very trendy. So we take photographs and illustrations so that you want people to learn. It's not a tick box. It's not, oh, I was at my toolbox talk. Tick. You want it to actually be engaging and inspiring. So what we've done is we realized we can't be on the ground every way. So how do we take the methodologies and the research and facilitating and put that into the hands of the people who need it? So that in our cases is our safety officers, our safety professionals, the team leaders. So we give how-to guides, all the paperwork that you could need to create a design thinking workshop or a thing, or those moments of communication. So all of the paperwork is done. Then we have attendance sheets, because the reality is there is compliance. Health, we wouldn't be here today if we didn't have wonderful constitutions protecting us. A lot of countries don't have that. So we do have some compliance, so it's attendance sheets. But the most important thing we have in the work, in our methodology, is feedback sheets. So it happens through a RAG analysis, so red, amber, green, which is, surprise, surprise, why we named our company Amber. But it's that you get the insights from the workers, from the front lines, and as leadership, and it goes into a lessons learned report. And these reports are here for you to be able to share with your other minds, your other sites, all the sectors. And as we build and grow as a company, our vision is that we'll be able to, there'll be a place to go and collect these lessons. But these are real lessons, and it's a way to really capture the voices through an interactive and engaging session. So you don't need to use Amber, but you do need to inspire communication and inspire a place where open dialogue can happen. Blame and punish is not what anybody wants. So the way we respond to failure really does matter, because if you want to get the feedback, you have to welcome the bad news, welcome the reporting. So Amber follows a lot of the just culture principles, which Sizwe mentioned, a lot of the new view principles on really how do you learn and grow, not blame and punish. So today I'm definitely going to speak a bit faster than my colleagues, but the suggestions that I have also as a young professional, because I'm only 33, so my career also began quite young. So I like to, especially with the demographic of today's audience, I'm also a young professional who responded and was brave enough to use my voice, put up my hand and say, I have an idea on how to help safety. So my suggestion is, as you're building your technical skills, remember to build non-technical. Some people call them soft skills, but I found people find them really soft and not cool. But non-technical skills, when it's reframed like that, we start to value things like negotiation, public speaking, understanding body language, being brave enough to talk, articulation. All of these things help you be a better professional, but will also, when you're faced with a safety challenge or want to inspire safety within your teams, you've got those skills. You have to keep humans at the center of safety. Yes, production is there, but when you're talking safety, it's about the human and making their work easier and safer. It's not about the rule. It's not about the target. It's about the human. And we need to learn and grow our thinking. So from every failure, from every error, from every near miss, there's a lot of lessons that you can learn, but there's also a lot you can learn from when things go well. So these are principles that really do help change the mindset of safety from punishment to a learning opportunity. And we've seen fatalities, and the goal of zero harm is a challenge. It's not easy. So how do we continue to grow and learn from the failures and prevent these from happening in the future? And we also need to think about the bigger system. So there's standards come in like ISO 45001, which talks about understanding the full scope. Just because you are a driller or a blaster doesn't mean you don't care about the full picture, and you now have to understand how things like COVID-19, how will the Ukraine-Russia conflict impact our industry, how will fuel price impact us? So our system and where we operate and work is constantly changing, and often people forget about informing workers of these big issues happening in the world. We all need to be safe within a full scope. So that's something I really always encourage us, think about the bigger system. And I know in this group, there's a lot of engineers. So system thinking and being able to think about the big system and the details, you're already in the right direction, and safety fits into the biggest picture we have into life. And then learn from other disciplines. Often I find when we get invited into the mines is there's a lot of pushback. Oh, you guys are creative, do what you want. But no, there's so much to learn. We learn so much from the metallurgists, from the geologists, and there's so much to learn from other disciplines as well, and especially design thinking. I know it's my firm favorite, but honestly, there's lots of blogs and things to follow, and it just changes the way you as a professional will be able to handle any conflict, because it's all about empathy and problem solving and communication and trying again and failing and prototyping and keeping the cycle going and keeping people alive and working and productive. So that is me, the end. So our whole thing's about culture. If you do want to give it a look, you can have a look on, you can sign up for free and see what it's all about. And then we'll be doing trainings soon as well. There's a whole lot of non-technical skills, but yeah, please log on, give us any feedback. It is in beta, so we do welcome any feedback or suggestions. And really this tool is designed for people in the industry. So we welcome all sorts of feedback, and thank you so much for having us, and thank you for listening.
No, thanks, Lindy. I think we're excited by the visuals that you shared during your presentation as well, and were those particular pieces of fine art that you've put together for us. We appreciate that you've really used this skill and this creativity in a space where I've done a lot of brain profiling, and that kind of thing is coming a lot into our industries, to understand how do people think and how do we leverage and create whole brain teams, because we need both the technical and the, as you say, the non-technical or the creative. And funny enough, on the brain profile spectrum, I'm a creative technical, so I often feel like a little bit of an alien among my colleagues, because I find that I speak a slightly different language, and the thinking is slightly different, but there's power in that. And I found that it's great to collaborate with a creative mindset on a technical task, and there really is a lot of value in that. So thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and a little bit more about amber. I like the naming, and I didn't actually know that it was specifically your red, green, amber. So that was very cool.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And there's not, the two minds are better than one, three is even better, but creativity can bring so many new ways to look at the challenge of safety.
No, definitely. I'll now hand over to Kondwani to take us through any Q&As that we may have in the comment section. Kondwani?
Fantastic. Yeah, it's been really interesting listening to all the opening presentations, and I definitely resonate with everything that's been shared. So to get a bit into the questions, I think this first question was actually directed to Dr. Sizwe. This was from Roger Dixon. The question was, the SA mining industry has had 60 plus fatalities in the last year. Has there been a detailed analysis in which would indicate where the deficiencies are? We all know what the perfect situation is, but where are we falling short?
Yeah, thanks, Kondwani. Good question. Grateful of that question. Yes, we have done some analysis. We can do even better. We continue doing in-depth analysis of our fatalities. Brian mentioned fall of ground, for example, continues to be a significant challenge for the industry. If you really look at our stats, I see Jaco Van Dale requested some safety stats. Jaco, you can contact me for that. So the safety stats, if you really look in the last 4 or 5 years, our fall of ground related fatalities in terms of numbers, we've remained stagnant. You have your gravity induced fall of ground, your rock falls, and you have your rock burst, and our rock burst on the rock burst part, we still have challenges there with seismicity, but we've managed to contain. But we still emphasize one fatality is one still too many. But when you look at our rock falls, we're still having a challenge there. Through our CO0 Harm Forum, we've initiated a project. We call it the Fall of Ground Action Plan, to eliminate fall of ground related fatalities. So we have that. It's an investment of 46 million over 5 years. We're working with different stakeholders, universities, we're working with suppliers as well. Next week, on the 31st of March, we're having what we call the Day of Learning on fall of ground. Technologies as well, how are we reducing our mining cycle through drill rigs, looking at issues of leading practices, workplace lighting, for example, in stopes, particularly in our hard rock mines, your platinum and gold. We have colleagues looking at the issue of skills. I like what Lindy was actually sharing with us. We're now looking at really educational and training technologies. You know about the virtual realities, the augmented virtual reality type of technology. So fall of ground, one, transport related incidents remain a problem. I think in this year, we've been seeing a spate of winch related fatalities, your rail-bound equipment. We have a big project focusing on trackless mobile machinery, or TMMs. How are we retarding? How are we failing our equipment safely? And this is part of technology revolution, as well as Brian mentioned, the issue of collision management systems, the proximity detection systems, but we are going beyond that. And I can tell you that in South Africa, I can say we are at the forefront of the development of these technologies, working with suppliers and OEMs. Some companies have made great strides in this area, your Kumba iron ores, your Glencore alloys, where you have these collision prevention systems installed in machines, to engineer out risk, so we don't rely on the operator. So transport, one area, big project, special project that the Minerals Council focusing on that with the support of our CO01 Forum leadership and as well as our board. At the Mine Health and Safety Council Center of Excellence, there was a project earlier on focusing on collision management systems, working with the University of Pretoria, doing testing at Gerotech facilities. Some of you may know about that. So, and I know at VETS, as far as fall-off ground is concerned and these other things, there are research initiatives, programs focusing on digitalization, on transport, as well as on, I think there's DigiMine there as well, focusing on fall-off ground as well, real monitoring systems. We're working with the Mandela Mining Precinct as well, which is also another research organization in the industry that we have. General type of accidents, fatalities, there you're looking at, there's a lot of things. They're falling from heights, your conveyor belts, slip and falls, so you're talking about lots of things there. But I think those fall-off ground, really, if we need a step change there are initiatives on that. We have a day of learning scheduled for the 31st of March at Birchwood Hotel, where we'll be taking stock on that learning, sharing leading practices as well in that area. So yeah, that's where the challenges are. We have the MOSH Learning Hub, leading practices, mining with nets and bolts. The Minerals Council, the reef bolting, that it has paid dividends for us, but we just need this thing, something extra to that. Safety is dynamic. Our mines are deep. We've got an aging infrastructure. But we are leaders at this, and as Brian was mentioning earlier, if you really compare ourselves with our international counterparts, Canada, USA, Australia, in terms of fatality rates per million hours worked, we came a long way. Our safety now is comparable. We can safely say it's comparable, despite the regression I mentioned earlier in 2020 and 2021. Our coal mines have been safer than coal mines in the US. At least there, we are comparing apples with apples in terms of geology, the skills profile of employees as well. So, but I know it was quite long expanding on the question, Kondani, but fall-off ground, transport, our general related accidents, they are giving us a challenge.
Thank you very much for that response. I think as much as it was detailed, I think it's also very quite insightful, which brings me to the follow-up question. And I want to send this question to Brian. So the question, Brian, is, could you comment on the level of research funded by MHCS and the trends in the last years, right? And I think also as you answer that, I'm quite curious around research that has also been maybe put towards behavioral studies around safety. Because again, I think with people behaving in a safe manner, it all starts with the mindset that they have. If you look at the current structures, right? People tend to get rewarded more when they actually are hitting the production targets. But when it comes to safety targets, I don't think it's as comparable as well. So which again, I think from a mental point of view, one is most likely in tune to rather focus more on production than they would on safety. So what kind of studies have been conducted to try and marry the two, which is the behavior part as well as the mindset as well?
All right. Thanks, Kondani. And thanks to Lindy as well. I enjoyed the presentation earlier, and Sizwe's and the question that's coming up now. So the question is talking to the level of research from a funding perspective. I think over the past like 10 years on average, we allocate about 50 million a year, so that could easily be $500 million that has been, committed to conducting research in the number of, topics, so that's just on a funding perspective. I mean, even human resources as well, like we've grown our workforce from about 10, 11, 12 people prior to 2017 to about 21 people, assisting us with research as center of excellence within the emergency. So that's the level of commitment and resources that we've allocated to try and solve the problems that we're dealing with. So we're doing high impact applied research that can be translated to operations and practices as speedily as possible. So that's one of the criteria we use in selecting the relevant topics that will assist us as quickly as possible, given that research is long-term in nature, but we really strive to do research that will give us, results as quickly as possible, while lives are being lost. And I think very, very important question on behavioral type research topics. We have actually recently paid much more attention on those types of topics. We do have a project right now that's looking at the impact of our CTF, cultural transformation framework, that we are busy with and hope to complete within the next 6 months. So as I said, we do technical topics, folds of ground, TMMs. I think Caesar mentioned that, but we are also very, very interested in human behavior now, and how is that leading to the performance that we're experiencing. And again, Caesar exhausted the response, but as part of the other classifications, we see a lot of miscellaneous types of incidents, right? So miscellaneous means the root cause of a fatality has not been determined as yet. Someone just collapses, for example, in the work area. So you can't say it's a fall of ground or TMM. Most likely it might be medical, it might be fatigue, it might be some other, maybe mental health, related issues. So it takes quite a bit of time. So we've seen over the past few years that basket of incidents that are miscellaneous growing, where it takes longer to determine what's the cause of that. And it could be likely, as an assumption that COVID-19 could have an impact, on those types of incidents that are not easily classified in what was the cause of that, fatality. So I think it's going to be very interesting with the research that we want to conduct now on how COVID has impacted in the regression that we are seeing, especially now in the past 2 years. People, the reducing workforce, someone is off for 10 days because they tested. How does that do to the rest of the workers that are remaining, in the work areas? So we're looking at that as well. But certainly we are, over and above safety and health, there is a great, increasing focus on the psychology and the human, behavior, parts of what causes our incidents. I think I'll stop there, Kondwani. I'm not sure if I did justice to the response, but I can clarify further if there's any. Thanks.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thank you very much, Brian.
Yeah.
So just a heads up, we have 3 more questions to address, and then we'll be closing it off. So I'd like to pass the next 2 questions to Simone.
Hi, thanks, Kondwani. The next question is for Lindy. Lindy, as young professionals, what is the role that young professionals should play in the safety dialogue, in the conversation? What do you feel are the practical tasks and next steps that they can take?
Perfect. So I think the next step is to first listen. Learn as much as what's happening in your workplace or the workplace that you're going to. Read up, follow the trends, be informed of where the error is happening and what research is being done, and then reflect, look to learn, understand. So I think as young professionals, we can often jump in and be ready to speak and action. And what about this idea? So my advice is to always learn first, reflect, and then, but be brave enough to make a suggestion, but without actually understanding that full context. And a lot of people that when you enter the workforce will have been there for years, and they've got a wealth of knowledge. We call it like experts of the blue line, experts of the way the work has been done. They have a lot of insight. So I often find coming to textbook heavy of like, oh, the theory says X can also be taken the wrong way, because you need to understand the workplace, understand the dynamics, and build those relationships and look to learn first. So that is my number one suggestion: learn first.
Yeah, I think learning and listening is so underrated, because we tend to want to jump to, hey, this is my brilliant idea, and to receive the validation for that idea, as opposed to, taking the time to learn and listen. Yeah, no, thank you for that, Lindy. I appreciate it. There's one more question that I'd like to address before I hand back to Kundwani. This question is for Sizwe, and it's from Yaku. Is there any research being done on, it says FOGs, so I'm going to assume it's fall of grounds, where one can use historical spatial data as a base for risk assessments to identify workplaces that may have a significant risk rate for a possible fall of ground, using a machine learning application for risk assessments?
Yeah, we have a number of research projects. Maybe Brian may come in. I'm not necessarily sure about the specificities of what Jaco is mentioning there, but fall of ground related research is very much on our radar. On seismicity, fall of ground, we have that. We've got the Mandela Mining Precinct, we've got the Mine Health and Safety Council, we have the Minerals Council with our fall of ground action plan. Besides what Jaco is asking, there is a focus on real monitoring systems in our fall of ground action plan project. There is a focus on barring, technologies to bar, faster drills, so that when we drill faster, that frees time, this thing of employees, as Brian was talking, rushing to get to blasting so that they can meet targets ahead and thereafter qualify for bonuses. When we have a faster drill, it will help that workers can complete the task within the allocated time, and you avoid the risk of overtime. You are also addressing the issue of fatigue. So the monitoring of the shake of ground, seismicity. There is a project at the Mine Health and Safety Council with the Geological, Council for Geological Sciences, CGS, if I'm not mistaken, so to monitor that. But yeah, I think there's a basket of research projects focusing on fall of ground at the Mine Health and Safety Council, and I think Brian may be able to tease the topics of that. But Yako's question is spot on, and I would also encourage, as this is the platform of students as well, I'm sure some of you are involved in some sort of research projects. You've got actually a contribution that you can make through your studies, whether you are writing dissertations, theses, as well, looking at the challenges that the industry has, and need PhDs, we need master's degrees on topics that the industry is grappling with when it comes to safety, so that the outcomes of such can lead to innovations, to technologies, so that we address all these challenges. I think you've got the right as well to safety, as well as students. It's not only other people like myself, Brian, and others elsewhere. You are equally have that duty. fulfill. Thanks.
No, thank you, Caesar. I appreciate it. Brian, did you have a comment or contribution on that?
Yeah, no. I think Caesar covered me, but just to be maybe more specific, we do have a project right now on establishing a database, based on geological information. But I think the suggestion goes a bit further, incorporating machine learning as well, and the technology component, which is not in the scope of the project that we have now. So I mean, it's good. The beauty of research, you always need to build onto other research. The fact that we are doing something now, doesn't mean that we can't pursue what I think Yako is proposing. But I'm sure we can. I don't know if our email addresses can be shared, Simone, for us to discuss a bit further, because we are opening a window of receiving research topics, from April, I think, until June. So I think if that email can be shared, and then we'll direct you to the right people to assist you in putting together a proposal and the relevant steps going forward in conducting that research. But it sounds like a good topics which can build to what we already busy with now.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian, for your contribution there. Kondwani, I believe there was a last question that you would like to address.
Correct, yes. I just want to highlight also that presentations will be made available, as well as the contact details of the speakers in case you want to connect with them and have further questions. So the last question, it's actually for Brian. So the question goes, it's actually it's a question from Tsepang. So Brian mentioned that mechanized mining improves safety in the mining environment. As a recent graduate, I'd like to know, what does this mean for the workforce in the future? So
all
Brian?
right, so thanks, Kondwani. I think it means you should be very excited. Yeah, I think that's a starting point. With advances in technology, I think more exciting opportunities actually will be created. So I think as a young graduate, you are better positioned, to take advantage of these changes. You just need to keep yourself aware, and as I said earlier, it also comes with upskilling and training as well. So let's say you've done your mechanical engineering degree, which would probably be based on conventional methods, maybe non-mechanized, but just make sure you take it upon yourself to upskill and do short courses, further training in line with what is happening, and that will certainly put you in a position to actually contribute and actually ride the wave of improvement. And I think just keep yourself informed and upskilled. And as MHSC, we are actually partnering with training institutions, Mining Qualifications Authority, universities, VETCP, and others, to ensure that as technology improves, the training that's provided as well is also in line, and will upskill and empower not just young workers but current workers as well, in being able to contribute in the changes as well. Yeah, so it means be excited. The Tsepo is a Tsepo. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, no, that's awesome, right?
Yeah.
I actually want to open the door and say we have a platform as well for knowledge sharing. So again, if there's any exciting things coming out of the pipeline that you'd like to share with the mining and minerals industry, we do have a platform where you can facilitate that knowledge sharing. So we hope to have you back here sharing with us any new developments. Sizwe, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to amplify what Brian was saying, and thanks for that important question from, I think is it Sepang, if I got it right. Yeah, look, that's the mining of the future. I mean, now what does it mean? Now we need to embrace technology, but let's qualify that people-centric adoption of technology. Gone are the days where there has been fear about mechanization, that it will it will erode jobs. You know, we have seen that mechanization can actually lead can create jobs, but it can also preserve. So I think that issue of people, as Lindy was emphasizing as well, let's not forget that part. And Brian mentioned, as part of the pillars of the cultural transformation framework, diversity is one of the pillars. We've seen that technology mechanization is also good for women, for our colleagues, women miners as well. So that as well, it's important to highlight, because we want an industry that is transformative, that is also receptive to the needs and qualities of women. It's nice to see that our industry is actually now increasingly actually having women leaders as well. Some companies, our president at the Minerals Council is Nolita Fakud. There's some companies such as Exaro and Anglo American Platinum are led by women, which is encouraging. Recently, the South African Collieries Managers Association appointed Nozi Podlamini as well. So this is all encouraging, and mechanization is that making mining sexier as well, and something cool for young people as well. It's not just for the old people, and with all the knowledge that you have and the topics that you are suggesting, as Yako did. So I think they will get us to that future, but let's not forget the people. And as Lindy was saying, there used to be a course at Wits. We are not all from Wits, but an engineer in society, so it's just to blend that technical and the non-technical skills, of which this is what actually a leader in mining requires to have, both the non-technical and the technical. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. Sizwe. Lindy, I think in closing, just want to find out any exciting things in the pipeline from Amber's side.
Yes, actually, as we speak, we've had a lot of deployments happening. So there's a whole lot of new features on how-to guides. And from May, we'll be running training. So that's all going to be free training for us. It's really about how to use the software. How do we open up the conversations around that? So from May, we're starting that, because actually next week, Tuesday, I'm getting married. So as soon as I get back from honeymoon, that is my next task. So yeah, so training, thank you. Yeah, it's been quite crazy to build a business and manage to plan a wedding. So for us, that's our big step, is really how do we do training. And then we're also going to be exhibiting at the AOSH Expo, which is at Gallagher Estate from the 31st of May till the 2nd of June. So if anybody's around, it's free entrance. It's really a nice place. There's SAIMM there, which will be able to, there's a whole lot of talks, a lot of PPE. So it's definitely worth your time coming to have a look. So we'll be there. And then I'm also going to be at Mining in Durban if anybody wants to meet up for a coffee or just have a learning team. So my colleague and fiance Matthew, he's going to be running what we call the Safety Differently Book Club. So it's an event we piloted. It's not an official Indaba event, but it's really about understanding and unpacking all these new views of safety and these human-centric. So I will share the details for that, and we may also move that online, which if there's a lot of people who'd be keen for that. Yeah, so for us, it's really just about growing and scaling and showing people what we've been up to. So yeah, very exciting. But for me, my most exciting is the 2nd of April. And I'm not meant to actually talk about this in public forums, so don't tell anyone.
No, wonderful.
Fantastic. And congratulations.
Thank
Simone?
Yes. I just wanted to add to the conversation and say, well done, because planning a wedding and running a company, I can imagine it's a challenge. And I echo Sizwe's sentiments about seeing more women leadership in the mining space and how that's actually very encouraging. So I'm an engineer at Exaro specifically, and I think we all know Nombasa. And if you don't know of our CEO Nombasa, then you maybe are not in the mining industry. So she's really out there, and we've recently celebrated our 5-year fatality-free at Exaro, and I think that was really quite exciting for us. So, you know, I think sharing learnings and women leadership and, you know, the mining industry as a whole becoming more empathetic, coming into that design thinking, having the empathy to you know, have the visibly felt leadership and to be both visible and felt and heartfelt. So yes, from my side, I think that spoke to me as well, Caesar.
Yeah, no, I've been invited to that celebration of a 5-year fatality-free achievement. So well done, and thanks for your contribution. It is this kind of things, and Simone, that gives us hope, and they do demonstrate to us that it is possible to achieve zero harm. So fantastic, well done. You spoke earlier about the book. Those who are wondering, here's that book.
Yes.
Published, yeah, I'm not abusing the platform, but I think it's a contribution to the industry. All right.
All right. No, thank you so much.
You will benefit a lot on the technical and non-technical aspects of mining. Yeah, the book.
I think you can share the link, you know, to the YPC team, and we can share with our members. Perhaps there's interest in getting a copy.
Indeed, published in 2018, just before COVID-19, but the contents are still relevant.
Yes, safety is always relevant. Thank you to all of our panelists, and thank you for the collaboration. Something important that Caesar said in his presentation as well is that we do not compete when it comes to safety, but we collaborate. And I think coming from various companies and different walks of life, different educational backgrounds, I think safety is something we can all relate to because we're human and we all want to go home to our families. So I just want to say thank you for everyone who joined us online, and to all of our panelists. Your time is valuable and we appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.